Famous last words.
I'll hold on to that one.
This episode is sponsored by Front-End Masters. Engineers have watched over 2 million hours of Front-End Masters videos to upgrade their skills in the latest best practices in front-end development and Node.js. Popular video courses of theirs include courses on advanced JavaScript, Angular 2, React, API design with Node, and functional and asynchronous JavaScript. Many of their teachers have even been guests on JavaScript Jabber. Check them out at frontendmasters.com.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of JavaScript Jabber. This week on our panel we have AJ O'Neill.
Yo, this is AJ with Dapley, and today I am taking back the internet right here at Microsoft headquarters in New York City.
Microsoft headquarters in New York City? I thought Microsoft headquarters is in Redmond, Washington.
No. It's their headquarters in New York City, not their headquarters. It's their New York City headquarters.
Why do you always argue with me? I'm Charles Maxwood from devchat.tv. And we're talking this week with Chris Dias from the Visual Studio Code team.
Hey, how are you?
Doing all right. We had you on the show back in February.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. And then we had somebody else from the Visual Studio Code team, and I forgot to check, and I don't remember names.
Erich Gamma, probably.
Well, Erich Gamma was on with you, but we had somebody else at Build.
Oh, Wade.
Wade
Anderson.
That's right. So, yeah. I'm just pointing that out so we can put it in the show notes and let people know to go check those out.
Awesome.
I'm wondering if you want to start by just telling us what's new in Visual Studio Code over the last 8 or so months.
Oh, wow. That's a long
I
list
know.
of stuff.
It's moving so
God,
fast. Yeah.
Jeez, there's so many things. So, since Build, which we went 1.0, some of the big things that have come in are, there's the integrated terminal, there's HTML preview, there's been a whole slew of enhancements to the extension API. There's been a whole ton of extensions that have come in. Support for like the Python support, PHP support, Go. There's Java extensions out there now. There's just about everything you can imagine. Horizontal, the ability to toggle the editor panes, be either horizontal or vertical, is in. Yeah, that was actually a big request, which was driven. Well, the community wanted, but we also like had this really killer scenario, which is data, right? So the useSQL guys and there's another SQL team, but in order they built this really cool integration where you can type in some code. I think you can just select it, press a key combination, and it'll pop up sort of a rich HTML preview page, which has tables, and you can navigate your data and do a lot of stuff. But since data is usually wide, they want it to be horizontal too, so you can toggle those things around. Lots of tweaks in just sort of the overall workflow of the tool. Just the flow of like how you can manage windows, what's in the command palette. A lot of debugging enhancements. One of the things that we're working on right now is the ability to be able to launch basically 2 debuggers. So you could attach to your Node app, and you could also use the extension for debugging the client side, either Edge or Chrome. And so you can launch both the client side and the server side and break and step through both sides right from within the tool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, question on that. Have you gotten any feedback or noticed anything about people feeling confused when both their server-side code and their client-side code is written in JavaScript versus like having separate languages?
Actually, no. So it just came out in preview, so we haven't seen a lot of like usage of it where people are going, "Hey, I'm not sure exactly what's going on here." So we haven't seen a lot of confusion for it. We have seen a lot of requests for it, and so it came out in sort of a preview form. The API is still going to change. Most likely. So we were very deliberate about the fact that, hey, the API is going to change. If you're creating extensions, know this. And so it's just starting to roll out now. So I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. I mean, we've debugged client server-side stuff and tools for a long time, so hopefully it'll be okay.
Oh yeah, I just sometimes I've heard people that are new developers.
Yeah.
Like I've heard people say like they like that their server side is in Ruby or whatever.
Yep.
Because it helps them cognitively.
Yeah.
And
no,
so
that makes sense.
And so with like that tight integration between the two, the first thought that came to my mind is like that could be amazing. And then like, I wonder if like new developers will be able to get that or whatever. That was all.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say tight integration, because really what we're trying to do is make it a loose integration, right? You can just choose to do the client-side debugging by installing that extension, and you have to go through a couple of steps to set it up. The tool, like when you press F5, it just won't configure itself to do all that stuff. So it's interesting. I like the term loose configuration because it applies to a lot of things that we're doing in the tool, and so all the different extensions and functionality that come in are really loosely integrated in there, and it does a couple things. One, it helps us keep sort of the performance of the editor as an editor, right? Because we load very little stuff on startup, right? And
yes, God bless you.
yeah, extensions, everything are all sort of lazy loaded.
That's awesome.
For these integrations, you have to go and make explicit actions like, okay, I want to add this thing and this thing and this thing, and weave it together.
By tight in this case, I meant more like the loop rather than.
Yeah. No. It's
I understand it's supposed to be loose and fluid.
It spurred that thought in my head.
Okay, good.
Well, and that's interesting too because, I mean, I don't know. When I started programming seriously, I was using an IDE, and then I went and worked at another company, and I got really into text editors, in particular Emacs, and I used Emacs for quite a long time, and I got pretty accustomed to just the speed and flexibility that I got from a text editor. And the IDEs, while they had nice visual tools and did some of the refactorings and things, it kind of gave me everything, whether I wanted it or not. And that's the thing that I like about Visual Studio Code is it gives me a lot of the nice, clean integration stuff, but it still has the editor, and I can just pick and choose what I want to add to it.
Yeah, you can see what's going on behind it, right? It's still your workflow, right? So if you want to do Mocha or you want to do whatever it is, you plug it in however you want, and we'll sort of that lightweight integration of all these, and sort of stitch them together rather than saying, hey, there's this one way of doing things, and that's the way you do it.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that works great. And there's a lot of people that would rather have a looser coupled experience, which is what we're trying to provide with the tool. So.
And to the effect of what you were saying earlier, Chuck, I've noticed at least with Vim, if I start loading too many plugins, if I get a little crazy happy with all the auto loaders and stuff, Vim will slow down. I imagine Emacs is the same way. So it's about choosing your tools carefully and not trying to pile everything in there, no matter what editor it is.
Yep. Yeah, all these extensions run out in a separate process. So if anything happens with them, that process goes down and we can spin it back up. We did recently enable disabling extensions.
Nice.
So instead of having like if you don't want the extension, you want to turn it off for a second, you would have to uninstall and then go install again. So you just click on disable and you do a quick restart. And so they all stay there. So if you want to manage them that way, you can do that too.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's very cool because we found ourselves just sort of constantly sort of moving things around. I personally, for me, like the extensions loading doesn't make any difference for the performance of the tool. I just get like, it just doesn't look clean to me when I have like a whole bunch of extensions. I have to keep that list tight. But that's a personal thing.
So I have a question for you. I'm going to change topics a little bit. We did get to see that integrated shell in the keynote, and I like it. I mean, it's something that I use fairly frequently with Emacs, but just to have it built in there, and then you don't have to do a big context switch in order to get to your command line and stuff like that.
The terminal is it's an interesting story, right? Like it was one of the top requests in user voice when we were using user voice, and we moved it over to GitHub. For the longest time, people wanted an integrated terminal, and we were kind of the position that the tool is really geared to sort of become a part of your tool chain. So you're probably using iTerm, you probably whatever thing, and we're like, why recreate the wheel that's already right next to the thing? But the scenario that people kept coming up with is just like, look, I just want this quick access to something that's scoped right to my workspace, my folder. Over in iTerm, I've got some other stuff running, and I don't feel like having to go over there just for something quick. And so after we sort of landed on what that scenario was, we introduced the terminal, and like people just love it. So it's nice for that because it's completely scoped. You don't have to manage anything else, and you get in and you get out.
Yeah, and then the other thing that you showed off in the keynote was the Docker integration stuff.
Yeah, the Docker extension.
Is that an extension?
It is an extension. Yep. It's interesting. It adds about 10 or 15 commands. It does IntelliSense and snippets for Docker files, Docker Compose files. Of course, it generates Docker and Docker Compose files. One of the things we didn't get to see yesterday, which we had to remove for time, was that it'll actually generate a debug version of the Docker Compose file. And so if you have a Node app, all you have to do is a Docker Compose up on the debug version, and it'll come up and it'll attach the debugger to it. So you can, as we saw in Visual Studio proper, you can attach the VS Code debugger to an instance running in a container as well on your local machine, which is pretty cool. I really wanted to show that, but I got time cops came after me.
Yeah, I guess they have to keep those keynotes pretty tight, don't they?
Yes, and it's a lot of work to get, a couple seconds here, a couple seconds there.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing some of the little tricks of somebody would say they're going to type something and then suddenly it was just there. Like I didn't even see them copy it.
Yeah,
they pasted it.
Yeah, I don't like those. I don't like when they look too magical. Like I think you spend the 3 seconds and do a copy paste and people go, oh, that's real, right? Because I want it to look real because it is real. Well, it's very real yesterday.
It's funny, too, because I don't remember if it was something that you did or James Montemagno or somebody else. But, yeah, one of the demos, afterwards somebody was saying, I'm pretty good, but it would have taken me 3 or 4 times as long to do whatever it was. And I'm like, I'm sure they practiced to get it down to the minute.
Yeah. There was a lot of dry runs, and I'm not very good at doing the dry run because it's all your friends sitting in front of you and everyone's judging.
Yep.
Fix your shirt. You didn't need to say that word, the. Take it out. Strike it. But, yeah, a lot of practice went into it. And actually, we reviewed it we did the demo for Satya and his directs a few weeks back as well. So we're just going around and telling the story of open tooling development on Microsoft tools and Azure. So it's a pretty fun story to tell. So yeah, that demo really originated from having this conversation with Satya and his team.
Cool.
So is there integration for Azure as well, like there is with Docker?
So are there Azure extensions?
Yeah, I mean.
So there's a few things that we're starting to see. So one of the things that there's not like this big button on the side of things, just connect to Azure, right? And we're actually, it's again, it's this loose coupling of experiences, right? And so a preferred model is that there is a set of extensions for Azure, and so what we're trying to do is encourage folks on the different Azure teams, for whatever functionality they have, to go and build, an extension for that particular thing. So the SQL guys are building one, and I think it's should be released, but it's out there. So we're starting to see these different extensions for Azure come out. And another thing that we introduced recently was this notion of what we call an extension pack. So it's a collection of extensions. Uh-huh. So what we'll do when we kind of get a little bit more critical mass is create the Azure extension pack where you'll be able to go get the SQL stuff. There's an ARM template editor. Somebody just released an extension for the Azure CLI. So instead of having to go to the terminal and run it, like you basically go to the drop down and you say, I want to create a new resource group or a new website, and it'll give you the list of resource groups, and you just pick that one, and it'll just go and do it, which is pretty cool. So what we'll end up doing is having sort of this collection of extensions which will let you do whatever it is that you want to do with Azure and make that much easier. The Docker extension actually has an interesting command in it. The Azure CLI, the new Azure CLI that I demoed, it ships like you can install it on your machine using curl or whatever, but it also ships as a Docker image. And so since you're in a Docker extension, there's a pretty good presumption that you've got Docker on your machine. Uh-huh. So there's a command in there just says run the Azure CLI, and it'll do a pull on it. It'll start it up interactively, and you can just log in and you start partying away in that running image or running container. Instance of that image running in a container.
So is this? I haven't seen that. I don't think so. Is this like where it runs in like the terminal window, but is running the container?
Yeah, it'll pop up in the terminal window.
Okay, that's part of VS Code.
It's part of the Docker extension, and it runs in the.
Yes.
Yeah. Extensions have the ability to create and then contribute into the terminal.
Right.
And so basically, it just spins it up, runs the Docker run -it, command on it, and it opens up in the bash shell inside that container.
I can see I got to clean up my language here. Integration is a dirty word. Extension is what we're talking about.
Loosely coupled extensions.
Loosely coupled extensions. Yes. Let me wash my mouth out with chocolate real quick.
No. It's just we're all accustomed to extensions. I mean, integration and all that stuff, and so it's just a different twist on it.
No, I understand. It's significant because comparing the past with the future, you got to make that distinction clear.
So let's pause for a moment to talk about our sponsor, Taurus. Taurus is a new tool for managing and securing the secret information that allows your app to run. You know the stuff: passwords, API keys, database credentials, all the stuff that gives access to the private stuff that you don't want anybody to touch except for your application in specific ways. Taurus provides a convenient way to store all this information in the cloud, and they can't access it because it's encrypted with material derived from your password, which is never transmitted to their server. So it's secured from them, from everybody else, but accessible to you. This means only the servers, development machines, and applications you've allowed can access the information. So make secrets management headaches a thing of the past and check out Taurus today. You can find them at devchat.tv/Taurus. That's devchat.tv/TORUS.
So one thing that I'm wondering about, because you mentioned that you've added some of these features to Visual Studio Code because people were asking for them. How do you decide what goes into Visual Studio Code and what needs to be an extension?
That is an awesome question, because it is so hard to make that decision of what you put in and what you sort of leave out. And there are things that we, well, let me back up a little bit. Most of the things that are in VS Code today are actually extensions, but packaged up in the distribution. So, the debugger for Node is an extension that we package up in the tool.
Oh, so you get it for free. It comes when I download it, but it's an extension.
Yeah. So we could have an editor that does, very little right out of the box, but there's not a lot of value with that. So what we decided to do in the tool is have an opinion on one workflow, one sort of vertical across the horizontal features of the tool, and that's the Node and JavaScript opinion or workflow. So that's why those things ship in the tool. But there's lots of cool things that are out there as extensions. Like, we should just put that in the tool, right? I can right-click and open up a folder or something like that. So there's a lot of debate. There's a lot of back and forth. They're like, is it really, is there a lot of usage of it? Does it just seem to make sense? There's a ton of different things that we go through. But beyond that, the sort of the internal debate that we have, when we put together the roadmap every month, we put this backlog of things out there, and people sort of can comment on it. So we get feedback from the community about what should go in and what should be done as an extension. So we try to take all this stuff and sort of boil it down and make the call. But there is no, it's one of the most difficult conversations that we have. It's like, because you don't want to just pile a bunch of stuff in if nobody uses it, right? Which is the other thing we do, is like look at telemetry data to see if it's getting used, and if it's not, what's the point of putting it in? So, yeah, hard question to answer.
The other question I have for you is you, and it's related, you mentioned that you were using user voice and now you're using GitHub Issues.
Yeah, once they added the ability to vote to GitHub, that's when we decided to move over.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I was also wondering just, how do you manage that? Because I can imagine you get a lot of GitHub issues from people using it.
So there's two steps. One is moving away from user voice, because the team is small, right? There's like 20 people, I think, worldwide. And so managing all the incoming feeds of data is really, really hard. So what we didn't want to do is load up the team with more people so that we could answer more questions. Like, you actually want to have a dialogue, right? So one of the reasons that we moved away from user voice was that it was just another input stream that we couldn't deal with that funnel or information flowing at us from another place. So that's when we retired that, and then we went over to GitHub Issues, and we dragged along, I think, the top 50 things that were in user voice, and then we asked people to sort of go, and if your favorite thing didn't make it over. And there's a lot of duplicates in user voice and all that stuff. So on the team's perspective, man, we, I guess, but it's mostly they, quite honestly. It's mostly they, like, compared to what I do. It's probably 50-60% of every engineer's time is sort of bringing in and understanding what all these issues are.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we basically one guy or girl a week, or will be deemed the sort of, they call it the inbox tracker, and just watches all the feed and then farms them out to the appropriate people to go and, whatever they're, the guy that works in the editor, Alex. So he'll get all those stuff, and then he'll sort of, work his way through it. So we factor all that amount of time in of working in the community and answering GitHub issues with the amount of stuff that we put on the backlog every month as well. But yeah, it's a ton of work, but it's completely worth it, right?
Yeah.
It's development in the open, and we get so much good quality feedback on it, and bugs that we would never have found ourselves. The ability to sort of iterate with somebody who's got the one machine that has the issue, and then, we're able to fix it. So it's definitely worth it, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Devs like to write code.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm just kind of trying to understand the process. So somebody submits a GitHub issue.
Yep.
The community will vote it up or down and comment on it and all that stuff. Your tracker, your GitHub issues tracker person gets in and says, "Hey, you're the right person to understand this. Track it down, talk about it, figure it out."
Yeah. There's two things. Like if you get somebody that submits a feature request that gets voted on, it's not like we probably won't sign that off to an engineer and go, "Hey, go do this." It'll sort of sit in the backlog. And then what we do every month when we kind of build out what we're going to go do, we look at sort of what the top things are and decide whether or not, we can take that on, or if it's like a multi-month thing to do.
Okay.
So we're slowly sort of chipping away at that, but also making a decision whether or not it should be an extension, should be in the product or not. There's a lot of things that people want that are very IDE-ish, and so it's a hard. It's a very fine line to walk to make sure that you keep it to be this lightweight, loosely coupled editor instead of creating yet another IDE. Because why have another one?
So your tracker person is routing bugs instead?
Yeah, it's mostly bugs, right? And then the feature requests will come in, and then they'll get funneled off to the person. But the day-to-day bulk of work is just issues that come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So with the people that are looking for more of the IDE experience, what's the friction that keeps them from using Visual Studio proper?
Nothing. Actually, we see quite a bit of dual usage of on Windows, right? So dual usage of Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. Scott Hanselman talked about it a bit yesterday. It's kind of like you need this quick and dirty thing, or it's if you're going to go do Node and JavaScript and stuff, it's clearly the best experience for that. And now on the Mac with VS for Mac. Did I have the name right? VS for Mac.
Yeah.
For Mac.
It's new. And if they want an IDE and they're on the Mac, then now we have an option for them as well. So it's a nice balance to the family. So, we had VS and VS Code on Windows, and then it was only VS Code on the Mac and Linux. And now we've got the partner to the big IDE. I shouldn't say big. The nice IDE now on Mac. So, we have this complementary tool in both places for that.
So Microsoft is really heavy on the any dev, any language, any platform, any device kind of thing. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff that Microsoft does that hasn't worked that way because legacy. So with Visual Studio versus Visual Studio Code, is Visual Studio going to make it in its full glory to Mac and Linux as well, like Visual Code has, do you think?
The Visual Studio that we have on Windows today, like bringing that over to the Mac it's impossible, right? There's so many years of stuff in that. So what I think what we'll see VS for Mac, which is, it's based on Xamarin. That functionality and that will increase. And then one of the things that we saw yesterday is it's a fluid interchange of code between the Mac and Windows in the Visual Studio for Mac and Visual Studio for Windows versions. So a lot of different versions here to explain. So
there's three. You really have three products.
Yes.
VS Code is a separate product that's
exactly
like Sublime or a visual Vim or Emacs kind of thing.
Yep.
And then VS for Mac is Xamarin, but trying to be built more towards what Visual Studio is, and Visual Studio is just the legacy Windows platform with all of the coolest, latest features. Right?
Legacy. I mean, it's going to continue to.
Well, not
to
right.
grow and evolve.
Legacy in that it carries its legacy with it, which is why it isn't on the other platforms.
Yes. I mean, that's a good way to describe it. And literally, it's like the code base. We could never move it. It would take us, I don't know how many millions of man years of work to go do it. So instead, we have this other tool that we can then go build up with the functionality and make sure that between Windows and Mac, and there's a compatibility between your source code and your solution, and everything sort of works the same in both sides. So yeah, I mean, it's just that the Visual Studio Windows code base is what, 2019? I forget when we created that. It came from Visual InterDev, and then we moved things into it. So yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of cool stuff, but. Visual Studio Code, since it's so fresh, doesn't have any of that history to bring along, and VS for Mac has a little bit of history to bring along, but not nearly as much. So I think we'll see them both evolve, and again, it's the compatibility between the two of them. And for things like VS Code, so if you want to do like .NET development in VS on Windows, or VS Code on Windows, or Mac, or VS for Mac, it's all using. This is the really cool thing that all of the tools are doing. Is we're using sort of the same back-end language services for all this and debugger services. And so when you do .NET coding in VS Code, it uses the same Roslyn compiler and the same extension infrastructure. Well, it will eventually, right? Which is loosely coupled. It's auto process. And so all the tools will do the same thing with debuggers. And so we basically have the one team that works on Roslyn can produce that extension effectively, and it'll work in all three of these tools. And so then you can still have your lightweight editor experience, or you can have your IDE experience. And we'll see more and more stuff that we build, and more things that are in Visual Studio today be extracted out to be running in their own process in sort of an extension model, and really following what we did with VS Code from the beginning, which is very cool. So lots of sharing there.
So you're describing a position that sounds really unique in that you have this small team of 20 people that's over one product, and then you have this much larger product. And you mentioned earlier, like, if you wanted to make changes, you don't know how many millions of man hours it would take to bring Visual Studio proper across the board. So with that perspective of seeing these three different products that are at different scales, what takeaways do you have about man hours improving project development, like, or number of people on a team, or dividing and conquering to accomplish goals? Because I think it's really cool that you have three products that are going towards compatibility and interoperability there.
Well, I think it's just really an evolution of the way that we're doing engineering. Like, you can't have three teams that are all really, really big, working on three different products. And so in order to support this family of tools, we have to get smarter about how we reuse and share code across all these things. And so moving them out means that we can have just one team that does Roslyn, and they're the experts, which is the C# compiler, you guys know. And they're the experts at that. So we can leverage that across three different products. So I think it's really just like, you can't say, okay, there's X number of engineers that are on Visual Studio and X number of engineers that are on VS for Mac, right? It just happens to be that there's X number of engineers on Roslyn, there's X number of engineers on this debugger. There's, like, it's more like that. And then we just surface how they get or we can just figure out how we surface them in the different tools. And so, the 20 people that are on VS Code, they're working on extensions, but they're also working on how we surface those things as well. So I think, you end up seeing, if you could sort of look at the org chart of Visual Studio or the developer division, you'll see, clusters of people moving around between, and they'll be less associated with one single product, but more associated with the thing or the extension or the service features that they're providing.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then there'll be a smaller group of people that have to work on the product, and their job will be to bring it in. And in the IDE case, it'll be to sort of have that, very tightly coupled, but end to end. What did Donovan say yesterday?
Like, he said a lot of great things yesterday.
Yeah, it's Visual Studio, so I'm going to right click until I find the answer, right?
Yeah.
And so, that's what that team will be doing, and so I think that's the way that we'll see that play out.
So if you do you feel that the number of people that you have on the team is the perfect number, or is it, if you could throw in a dozen more people to do more things, would you do it, or is it great the way that it is?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think if you ask different people on the team, you'll get different answers. This is my opinion. I feel like less people or smaller team is more effective for two reasons. One is, maybe it's the same reason, but here's why I think it's more effective. Because you have a smaller number of people on a team, you have to be more deliberate about the things that you're going to do, right? And so that means that there's just less stuff that's being put into the pile. And so you kind of go a little bit slower at it, but you add something and you add it really well, and you can then measure it and make sure that it's effective. When you've got, a gigantic team, there's overhead that's involved with just managing a team and managing features and all this stuff that happens. So I think for VS Code, I like the size of the team that we've got now. Is there more stuff that we could do? Sure, right? And there's more stuff that are sort of peripheral to the product itself that we could put more people on. So that's my opinion. Is I feel like the size of the team is good. I'm sure others on the team think, if we had 5 more heads, there's 5 more things that we could go and do to it, and that's true. We could go and add more stuff. But I'm more of let's take smaller steps, progressive, learn as we go and grow that way versus sort of piling everybody on and going, go figure it out.
One thing that I'm going to change topics again a little bit, because one thing that I've been wondering about a bit with Visual Studio Code is you said that you kind of have the default experience that you want people to have, and that's around Node.js. What does that experience actually look like? How do you envision the workflow that a developer is going to go through as they use Visual Studio Code to write Node.js code?
I think it really is focused around 2 key things, which is code editing and then diagnostics, right, and debugging, right? And so, actually, we probably talked about this last time, but the JavaScript experience in VS Code is driven by TypeScript, the TypeScript compiler. And it's the
Yay!
same. Yeah.
Right, AJ?
That's awesome.
Well, it gives us a ton of information, right? And so
Yeah.
So
No, I'm a fan of TypeScript. So.
Yeah. So it's actually interesting, right? So our core opinionated workflow, a lot of that comes from the TypeScript team. They're not even on the VS Code team, but we work very, very closely with them. Mm-hmm. And one of the cool things that's starting to come out over the last month and this month and next month is this experience we call automatic type acquisition. And I demoed it in the Insiders build yesterday, but effectively for whatever top 2,000 Node frameworks out there, there are TypeScript definition files that exist. Mm-hmm. And the TypeScript compiler will look at your package.json and figure out, hey, is there a corresponding definition file that I could go pull down for you and cache it away, and then you just get this great editing experience on it, right? So right out of the box, even though there is no box, what we really want you to do is you open up your source code, doesn't matter what it is, you start typing and you get this awesome IntelliSense experience. And then closely related to that is navigation or understanding of the code across your workspace, right? So I show this thing, you hold down the command key, everything becomes a hyperlink, you click on it, you can navigate so you can understand the context of your entire workspace. So that's another big thing. And another thing that the TypeScript guys are really going to focus on in the next couple of months is refactorings and code actions. So being able to sort of get light bulbs and just improve your code. So we really want to have this really rich TypeScript experience. We're working on mixed mode experiences. So if you've got HTML and JavaScript and CSS mixed together, those are a rich experience. We had it early on in the product. This is going back to sort of what's in the product and what's not. Right. Early on in the product, we basically, for an HTML file, we had a language service that sort of understood JavaScript and CSS. And then we made it an extension. The HTML experience is an extension in reality. And so we lost some of that functionality. So now we're building that back in. So like I said, we want to have this great sort of end-to-end experience for that. And then, of course, there's the debugging experience. And one of the key drivers of the ability to do multiple target debugging was that if you're doing these sort of Node backend, HTML front ends, to be able to use the Chrome or Edge extension and debug both of those. So we want to be able to have that rich experience. And then from there, there's a lot of sort of just loose coupling of experiences. So if you're going to run your Mocha test, right? We're going to start thinking about, is there some way to have a lightweight integration of a test runner in the tool, but Mocha, whatever the greatest and latest test framework is for Node these days, it'll plug right in, but in a loosely coupled way. And this other experience that we have is around tasks, so you can sort of, like we talked about as loosely coupled, but you can sort of automate an experience end to end. And of course with Docker being able to create microservices. So it's that sort of whole end-to-end experience which we're trying to go for. But at the end of all of this, it's still an editor, right? There's no HTML designer or any of that stuff. And I never expect us to build an HTML designer for VS Code.
Famous last words.
Yeah,
I said famous last words.
I'll hold on to that one. But I mean, that's really the way that I think a lot of the workflow that I showed yesterday, sort of starting from scratch, GitHub integration, diagnostics, editing. That's kind of the experience that we're going for. And then another thing too, which is interesting, but it goes back to the TypeScript guys, is if you're using Angular or other sort of popular frameworks, having a great editing experience over that as well. So TypeScript guys work a lot with the Angular team, and so then all that stuff will surface up into VS Code through the language service, which is cool.
Yeah, I know plenty of Angular folks that they write their Angular 2 in TypeScript in VS Code, and they're just like most of them say there's nothing like it.
Yep.
There's nothing else like it that does everything that I need, and I think it says a lot about what VS Code is and what it's really capable of, because I know just as many people who are using it to write stuff that has nothing to do with Angular. It doesn't even come close to what Angular does.
A lot of Markdown gets written in VS Code.
Oh, really?
I'll tell you that. Yeah, it's the third most popular language, I think, that gets edited.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, tons and tons and tons. In fact, a lot of the folks that write documentation inside Microsoft, outside of the developer division, are all landing on, VS Code with a couple Markdown extensions to get whatever workflow that they want, which is pretty wild. So
that's crazy, and I love getting those kinds of tidbits, right? Because
Yeah.
I would have never thought to ask.
Yeah, no, it's wild to see that.
What are people writing with VS Code?
So by and far the largest we're seeing is Node and JavaScript development. TypeScript is another huge one. I mean, PHP, Python, Go are all big. Like Go is really, really another very the best experience out there for Go seems to be VS Code plus the Go extension. So we see a lot of that development that's going on there. Python's another big one. That extension is really right out of the box, open up, boom. You've got it's just like C# or Node or something. Full IntelliSense, full diagnostics. It's pretty wild. So we are definitely seeing sort of more of the sort of the webby style, cloud style applications being written in VS Code. I mean, we don't have like we know what kind of things people are writing. We know what languages people use, right? And so those are kind of the big ones that we see.
Right.
Let's take a break from this episode and really quickly talk about finding a job. Searching for a job can feel stressful, scary, and time-consuming. Pushy recruiters try to sell you on roles you don't actually want, and the job boards make you feel like you're throwing your resume into a black hole, never to be seen again. And sometimes you go all the way through an interview process just to find out that the very end that the salary offer or company culture doesn't match what you're looking for. Well, there's a solution. Hired.com is the world's most intelligent talent matching platform for full-time and contract opportunities. They make the job search faster, focused, and stress-free. Instead of endlessly applying to companies and hoping for the best, Hired puts you in control of how and when you connect with compelling opportunities. And after completing one simple application, top employers apply to you. And the best part is that you get money. That's right. They pay you if you get a job through them. Listeners to this show can earn double their normal hiring bonus by signing up with the show's link. That's right. You get $2,000 instead of $1,000. So go sign up at hired.com/JavaScriptJabber.
I'm curious too. One thing that I've seen over the last several years is that with open source software or with particular products, the people who are making them and the people that are using them tend to have sometimes a slightly different view on what it is, and sometimes they have a vastly different view on what it is. And so I'm curious, do you have any sense of how the Visual Studio Code sees Visual Studio Code versus how the community views it and uses it? Or do you feel like they align very well?
I feel like they do align pretty well. It's an interesting question. I hadn't thought about this. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I do think it aligns because we do all of our. I mean, we're very much open sourcey users, right? I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of packages that we use to build VS Code, from Electron framework all the way up the stack, and the people that are participating out in GitHub and issues and stuff, a lot of those guys and girls are open source developers. So we're getting that feedback in. So it feels like it's well aligned, if I understand the question correctly.
Well, it sounds like it, and it sounds like you communicate a lot. It's usually that disconnect comes from a lack of communication.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it sounds like you've mitigated a lot of the issues that can arise from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do development in the open when you've done development in the closed, I guess, for however many years people have done it, because you have to say, all right, all these conversations that we're having in email, nope, put it in an issue, talk about it out there. Like, you have to sort of get into that mindset. And once you do, the benefits that we reap from it are huge, right? On both sides of the fence, right? Like people can see what's coming and they can influence what's coming, and we get all sorts of great feedback, and we get all sorts of help from people, submitting pull requests. I think like every release that we do, what we try to do in the release notes at the end of it is sort of do a shout out to everybody that made a pull request that we were able to take in the past milestone. And there's got to be easily between 10, 20, 25 every single month. So yeah, we're getting a lot of people contributing back.
So you're mentioning it's built on Electron. So are you guys using the Electron build tools to build VS Code to package it out?
So we use the Electron shell. We don't build it. We take the binaries, but we can build it. I forget, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, because I believe Electron solves the problem of if you need to get it in a .app versus if you need to get it in a .msi versus .dev or whatever.
Like for packaging, like the app, like for MSI, we use this thing called Inno setup, INNO setup. I don't know what the tools are we use to build the app or the Linux packages. I don't think that they come.
So okay. So you've got your own.
Yeah.
Well, Inno setup is that's surprising, because I thought Microsoft had their own tool, but you're using, because Inno setup is third party kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's super easy to create MSIs with that thing. So, and it's open source. So we tend to try to look for the open source stuff first. But yeah, we went to that a long time ago. So yeah, I mean, it's built on that shell, but we do a lot of, we have a lot of automated scripts and all of our builds and stuff run in Visual Studio Online internally, and then we publish them out. We have this actually pretty cool system that the guys created, where basically every night, so we have these insider builds, and we have the monthly, I call them stable releases, and every night, there's an automated build that gets kicked off, and then you can just go into this web page, and it's this very ceremonial thing where it's like, who's going to click on the checkbox this month, right? And you click on it, and boom, it just goes everywhere. And we just watch the install numbers at that point. So we like X number of people that have got it, and like what the ramp is to, within an hour, there's something like 15,000 installs that happen, and it just you just watch it take off like wildfire. So it's pretty cool in that we have this ability to sort of go to this web page, and you click on a checkbox, and then worldwide, everybody will start to get the prompt to go and install and update to the tool. And quite honestly, if something happens, you can uncheck it, and everyone will roll back to the version that they were on before. So sometimes we have to do that. We apologize profusely.
When you get the prompt to update, does it just update in app? Like, you don't have to go download or anything. It just is an in place update.
So what'll happen is if you do a check for updates, it'll go and look, and it'll pull it down, and it'll periodically check, and it'll pull it down in the background, and then you get a prompt that says just restart. And on the Mac, it just restarts. It just lays down the new app. On Windows, the setup is kicked off, but it's automated, so it just runs through and just is done. We don't have automated update on Linux yet, but we are working furiously on that one. So it's kind of in-app, a little bit, as close as we can get it.
Right. Just wondering. So do you write Visual Studio Code now with Visual Studio Code?
Oh yeah, and it's all written in TypeScript. It's complete dog food. I think the weirdest thing though, is because we're a small team and we started out pretty small and grew rapidly. As you walk around campus and some of you in a conference room, and there's Visual Studio Code on the screen. like, hey, what? And you stop, you back up. Because for so many years, you're used to seeing everybody having Visual Studio up on the screen, whatever they're doing. And they're like, what's that team doing? So there's a bunch of people internally that use it as well. But yeah, we definitely dog food the thing. And that's what the Insiders build, I mentioned this yesterday, that the Insiders build is literally the same one that we use, right? And what's cool about it is because we use it, if there is some bad bug in there that, if you're on Insiders, you're going to be completely blocked, we're going to be completely blocked too.
Right.
And so that thing is going to get fixed. Like the biggest problem with that is a time zone thing. Right? Half the guys are in Switzerland, the other half the guys are in Redmond. So making sure like if something gets found, like we're in the right place if we have to make a fix or roll something back. But that's the cool thing about it is it's literally the one that everybody uses. I mean, you can go and you can clone the repo and you can run it locally and stuff. And in a lot of cases, you have to do that for whatever it is you're building or debugging. But we all just use the nightly build. And it's kind of this just morning ritual, right? You come in and you turn it on, you get the upgrade prompt. 2 seconds later, you're good to go. And you just like find out what happened. And that was the other exciting thing that I didn't really highlight yesterday was that it's a nightly build that you pull down, right? And so what happened last night while we were sleeping? So I rolled a lot of dice yesterday, but they all came up for me, whatever that number would have been.
It's sevens.
I think, yeah.
If you were rolling all the dice, it probably would have been like a 49, I think is what you would have arrived at.
Yeah. So yeah, we do dog food. So back to the build process. So yeah, it all happens. It's all automated. It's all in Visual Studio Online, and then we publish out to Azure hosted CDN, which is where then all the bits are out in the wild. So it's pretty cool, pretty quick. Automated signing processes for Mac and Windows, which is a big thing, like to get Microsoft into a place that it could sign Mac builds and stuff. And so we used to have to go ask the Office guys because the Office guys had the Mac apps first.
Right.
I'm like, can you sign this, please?
Oh man,
Nice.
the signing process for iOS and Mac apps, it's a holy pain. I've done it a couple of times. I'm like, how do I do this again?
Yeah. Sometimes we have some hiccups with it. And the Windows one's actually,
I haven't published
Easy.
anything to Windows, so I don't know. on
Yeah,
that end.
and it's that one was easy to go to. There's like a whole team and a whole service team. You just give them a folder and they kick it back to you. So it's good. We drove that whole process. We got that sort of workflow down. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to it, which is cool.
So what do we see in Visual Studio Code going forward? I guess if you plan and meet and plan the next month, we may only know a month in advance, but
let's see. There's a few things that we're doing that, I mean, you can the roadmap and the iteration plan, I'm sure, for the next month is actually up on GitHub. Some of the big things that we're looking at are sort of the getting started experiences. So when you first sort of start up a tool, how are you going to be comfortable in 30 seconds, right? Because I've got your attention for a very short amount of time. Right. And by virtue of the fact that you're coming over to try out VS Code means that 6 months from now, you might go try something else, right? So I need to grab your attention very quickly. And so there's a lot of things that we've been doing and that we'll continue to do around how you can sort of configure the tool to be yours right out of the box. Like we've got a couple of their extensions, we call them key map extensions. So a key map for Sublime key bindings, for example. And
for Vim and Emacs, of course.
Yeah.
I was going to say the people for Vim and Emacs live or die by those.
Yeah, the Vim one, I don't know the state of the Emacs one off the top of my head. The Vim one, we actually put one of our guys on the public extension that was created outside the team for VS Code. And we dedicated a resource on the team to go and just work in that community and build that thing up. And people, we're seeing the conversion. It's hard to move a Vim guy over, right? Because there's so many little cool tricks that you can do there. And so
Black magic.
Emacs is the same way.
Yeah.
It's just a lot more control key.
Yep. So we're starting to see that. So what we want to do is make it easy for you. Like, okay, yeah, I'm a Sublime guy or a Vim guy or whatever. I can set that up. Let's see what else off the top of my head. We're doing some experiments around the Explorer tree so that you could contribute a different model to the Explorer. And the canonical example
What do you mean?
so like if I want to do any data access development, it's really hard if you can't look at your table.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so being able to see the structure of something besides your file system. And it's easy to do, like, hey, I can contribute. Well, it's not, I mean, I shouldn't say it's easy to do. I didn't write it. So the model where you could contribute something to a tree is conceptually, like, yeah, I get that. What's really challenging, but it kind of goes back to the original question or set of questions, is how do you surface something like that in the tool in a lightweight way that people have complete control over? And it's not like, you end up with the 18 different tree tool windows that are sitting there. So you want to be able to. I think that's the biggest thing that we're actually working on over the next month or two, is how can we make that surface itself that's useful but not cluttering the entire environment.
So while we're talking, I went to look up this Vim plugin, and this is the problem I run into right away, right? So there's like 12 different plugins that are named Vim something. And so I'm like, how can I solve this problem for myself? And like, there's not a date to know like when the project started or like when the last push was. And because I'm looking, I'm scrolling out, like I'll find the one that's edited most recently, and the count, I finally did see the count there too. But the count is sometimes a good indicator that it's, at least it's the popular one.
It's
not necessarily that it's the best one.
It's the one that looks like, I'll go start looking at that one. Yeah, but you can go and there's interesting things we do with the when you look for an extension in the tool and you click on it, we'll actually show you sort of the README for the extension in the tool, so you can see what's going on, like what it's going to contribute. But we also, there's a set of tabs in there. Second tab is like contributions, so you can see what key bindings it installs, what languages it does. There's another tab in there which is the changelog. So if you follow the model in the README, we'll actually show you that, so you can see the progression of how the tool is, or the extension is being developed, and the time and date and how active and all that stuff is. And of course, there's ratings that people can give.
Is the changelog, is it just pulling that from like all caps changelog text file? Or where is it trying to pull that from? Do you know?
I think so. I don't know.
Okay.
I have to look it up. I haven't done it yet. That's the thing we have to do, is it's new, so all these extensions out there haven't done it yet. So we have to go and encourage that to be done. But yeah, it's challenging, right? It's there are a lot of extensions out there, and we want to surface the key map ones a little bit more promptly. Prominently, yes. Sorry. In the tool. So those are some things. So we talked about the contributing to the Explorer and how we can make that more obvious or usable to people. Lots of API, continuing to evolve the API, both on that front. Let's see, what else? I don't know, I can't think of any more off the top of my head. I've been doing demos for the past month. But you can go and look in the GitHub issue, and you'll find the whole list there. Oh, so what I was talking about was there was this classification things, which was making it easier sort of to get started with the tool. So that's sort of the area that we're focusing on right now. So they'll be along those lines.
It's funny, you were talking about you've been presenting for the last month, and I was like, yeah, so we're here with Keynote Chris.
Yeah. I want to get back to my regularly scheduled job.
Nice.
Yeah, it's more fun.
Well, we've had people walk by and look in the window a couple of times, so I'm going to start heading us toward wrapping up. But if people want to check out Visual Studio Code or get an idea, oh, hey, this sounds really cool, I want to know a little bit more about what it's about, or follow you on Twitter or anything like that, well, where do they go?
Code.visualstudio.com, and we have the coolest Twitter handle ever, which is just @code. So that's
oh, nice.
Oh yeah.
How'd you score that?
I can't reveal them. It was available.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we're
no assassination attempts or anything.
No, none. So code.visualstudio.com and Twitter are the two best places for just sort of broad information. And then github.com/Microsoft/VS Code is the repo that we do all of the development. And in the wiki there, you'll find links to the project, because we do, like, GitHub added the whole Kanban board thing recently, so we moved over to that, so you can watch what's going on there. We publish our backlog up there, and every week it gets updated, sort of where we're at through the course of the milestone. So those are the three best places to go and look.
All right. The way that we wrap the show up, this, we do picks. So I'm going to go ahead and make AJ give us some picks, and then I'll do some picks, and then you can do some picks.
Okay.
All right, so because we were talking about Donovan earlier, this may not be the exact quote, but it's probably as close as anybody has, except for somebody that recorded the audio and has transcribed it since. But he said, "I love the warm, fuzzy comfort of my IDE. I've got my swagger back. I'm going to trust my instincts and right-click again." So, is that Connect is published online already, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so hopefully we can get the link to Donovan is funny.
We have amazing show notes, people. They will find the link.
That's good. Yeah, because Donovan's great, and I love watching him speak and listening to what he says. Also, I'm gonna pick my company, Daply. So we are on both WeFunder, which is a crowd equity site, and we have our Kickstarter up on Indiegogo. Our goal is to take back the internet. And what we're starting with is a home cloud system. So it's a complete system, not just storage, but also other apps, having your own domain, music, media, that kind of thing. And if you believe in the vision of the company, you check us out and believe in the vision of the company, you can actually invest for as little as $100. And also, of course, we have our pre-order open, like I said, for Cloud, our first product. So if you want to check us out, it's daplie.com, and you can see some of our videos and material there. Thanks.
All right, I've got a couple of picks. The first one, so I've mentioned this a few times now during this, but I hired a business coach. One of the things that she went after me on was focus. And so I had to uninstall Facebook and Twitter off of my phone because it pops up and beeps at me and steals my focus. Well, one of the other things that she had me do was install this plugin. And as soon as I installed it, it was almost like a relief. And it's a plugin for Chrome. And what it does is it blanks out your feed, whatever they call it, the main feed on Facebook. So that shows you the random, stuff that Facebook curates that list. Yeah, it makes that go away and puts a Buddhist quote in there or something about focus. Now, it only does it on that main feed. So if people are sending you messages through Facebook, or if people are sending you friend requests, or you're on a Facebook page or a Facebook group, all that stuff shows up fine. It's just that main section in the middle of Facebook that has random stuff and random ads in it. That goes away.
The one where you go to Facebook to check a message and then you get distracted by the
BuzzFeed.
Yes,
that one. That's the very one. And that's the very reason. So I don't remember what it's called, but I will put a link to it in the show notes, and you can check it out. I have various other plugins on Chrome that are pretty nice too. The other one that saves me some distraction is Tab Wrangler. And what that is if you leave a tab open for 10 minutes and you don't have it tab locked, then it will close it for you.
Oh, cool.
And it's real nice. So occasionally, like for example, I was doing one of the online conferences, and I just read the speaker bios right off of the website for the conference. I hadn't locked that, and so it closed it right before I went to read it. But for the most part, it's pretty convenient, because then it's like, okay, which of these 30 zillion things that I've looked at today do I actually need to be on? Nope.
All of them?
It's closed all of them except for a handful, and that's because I haven't left them open for 10 minutes. So I really, really like that. And yeah, I think it's Tab Wrangler, and then it has a Tab Corral So you can mark them to lock them, and then you can also give it domain names and stuff. So it'll just, so for example, devchat.tv for me is tab locked, and that means that it won't auto close anything off devchat.tv because I'm probably working on devchat.tv. So anyway, super nice stuff. And then I really do want to shout out about Visual Studio Code because it is a great coding experience. So yeah. Chris,
So-
do you have some picks for us?
So do my picks have to be like
Pick whatever you want.
whatever I want?
TV shows, movies, music, code stuff,
All right,
whatever.
I've got three
Okay.
picks. One of them is I just got into smart things like the hub and the lights, the Philips Hue. Love that stuff. So now what happens at home is when the Seahawks game starts, my outdoor lights, one turns green, one turns blue, and then at the end of the game they go back to a soft white light. Love that.
Nice.
It's so much fun to do. And my wife is like, "Do we need this? Do we need it?" It's like the whole premise is there is no need for any of this stuff, so you can't just pick one
Right.
and say that one's not necessary. The entire thing is not necessary, but it is so much fun. So that's number one. Number two is my pastime outside of work, which is making pizza. So wood-fire-pizza-oven.us.
Ooh.
I just bought this pizza oven a couple months ago. It's the greatest thing.
How big is
ever.
it?
It's 2 feet by 2.5 feet.
Oh, that's not bad.
No, it's portable, so it has a little cart that you can kind of wheel around. But it gets up to over 1,000 degrees, and it's completely wood fired. There's no gas involved, and it creates amazing Neapolitan style pizza.
I lived in Italy for 2 years, and
Whereabouts?
mostly in northern Italy. So around Florence and Venice. I lived in Verona for 6 months.
Cool.
But yeah, that's how all of their pizza is. It's all cooked in a wood fire. I think you just spent a couple $100 of my money. Because my mouth is watering. It's like I can't get pizza like that anywhere.
It is amazing. I'll show you some pictures after this. So that's the second one. The third pick that I have is I want to give a shout out to my buddy in marketing who couldn't be here with us today, but he was the guy behind the scenes, the whole event. So PJ Meyer, guy's awesome. If you ever run into him, tell him he's awesome. Give him a big hug. He loves to be hugged.
All right, I think I can do that.
All right, cool. Thanks. That's my picks.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up, but thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you.
You are welcome.